Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for turning up. Can I ask who's new to HalfStack this month? Oh, fantastic. Oh, brilliant. We're a kind of two things really. It's actually a meetup that's been running since 2010. We used to have a different name, but no one started to know what that name meant anymore. So now we're called HalfStack, which is kind of a sort of bit of a pun on full stack. And the reason it's a bit of a pun on full stack is that we run a sort of conference, an all-day conference in a pub, which is just coming up shortly. Oh, thanks to Just Eat and so on, brilliant beers and pizza. Cheers. There's just a few things about some events coming up and just around the country, and then we'll get on with Daniel's excellent talk. So HalfStack's a conference run by the HalfStack Meetup people, and this will be its third year. It's in a pub, lots of food provided by local food stalls, choices of things like that, and excellent talks. There's a particularly interesting one for me by Ada Rose on VR, probably on A-Frame, I think, and things like that. But there's a whole variety of various JavaScript things going on too. And the sponsor. No, did I lose it?
It's me. There you go.
Yeah. Sponsors of HalfStack conference are SitePen, who make Dojo, and Twilio, and various other bits. Some things going on sort of around Europe. There's a nice reactive conference in October, and there's a 10% off code if you use that, if that's appealing. This sounds fun. I think it's down in Brighton. I think it's both, it says 9th or 10th November, but I think it's on the 9th and 10th. And quite interesting mix of sort of quite offbeat talks there. Quite interesting, actually. Might get down to that. In Newcastle, yeah, I've been up there various times, and that looks again quite interesting. Okay, just before the talks, just a bit of news and context of JavaScript. So React 16 is out, and that brings a sort of various new changes, not quite breaking changes, but things that will be breaking changes come React 17. There's some information on this thing. The slides will go up. There's interesting things on actually upgrading. If you have a larger React app, upgrading to React 16. Angular 5, Angular seems to be generally speeding along now, but Angular 5 is slightly delayed. One of the main organisers of HalfStack is Dylan Sheeman, and he's one of the main people behind Dojo 2. And that's, if you haven't heard of that, it's very popular. It's been very popular for about 13 years with enterprise companies who need JavaScript. And Dojo 2 is very interesting. It's got TypeScript, unidirectional data flow. And if you're involved in enterprises, you might be using that. And it's now on its third beta. And final bit of news snippets, Firefox Quantum Web Render. So really looks interesting for super smooth. If you're looking like 60 frames a second type behavior in Firefox without just being jerky all the time. Okay, well, we've got an excellent speaker tonight, Daniel Lobo. He's from AllZero, and AllZero are super powerful authentication, authorization type solutions at all different levels of companies. Daniel's a developer success engineer, and there's a really exciting sounding talk on basically having your back end in your front end. And I really want to see how that goes. Okay, can we have a big hand for Daniel, please?
Hello. Okay. What about the mic? Yeah, that's all right. I think it needs to be muted. Sorry. No. That's all right. Mind. Okay, how do I do that? We'll carry on like that, right? No. Like this? Hello. What about the... Yeah, it was the audio of my laptop, actually. Yeah. Okay, so I'll start sharing the screen. And here we go. Whoa. No, not this one. Sorry. Google Chrome. Good. So a little bit about me. I'm a developer success engineer working in Auth0. Auth0, for the ones that not know what it is let's say a security company that is working in identity management. That means that we care a lot about the identity of your users or who your users are in whatever application that you're building. And the company has been around for nearly 4 years. I've joined 2 years ago when we were less than 50. Now we are over 250 all over the world. It's a remote first company. So that's why I'm here in London, but actually living in Madrid. And I'm originally from Argentina. So been here and there. I know this is called HalfStack. So will be mostly based on the backend, and we will start talking about that a little bit more. What I encourage you is to start interrupting me and making me questions at any time of any kind. So we'll make this more dynamic, because I'm going to cover different topics that might be more fun or more boring depending on your tastes. Okay, let me see if this works as expected. No, it doesn't. Okay. Of course not. So back in the 1960s, right, the client-server mechanism was kind of invented, right? We had the majority of modern mobile and web applications are based on this architecture. Let me try again if this works. No. Yeah, I think it's still breaking. There we go. Are we still? Yeah. That's what it kind of looks like, the client-server mechanism that most of the applications that we normally build today do. There we go. I'm not sure if you can see my screen or not. So we are mostly focusing, the webtask concept that I want to elaborate during this talk is mostly focused on the server side of things. I'm forgetting completely about the client, and I like to decouple deconstruct the server concepts, right? So first we can extract the two elements of the backend that are specific to the application, which is the server code and the secrets it has access to. Both of them are data, right? I'm gonna try again, switching the slide without changing the screen. Not really. So they can both be serialized together into a bundle, as they are just plain data, and they can be cryptographically protected from tampering and disclosure. So let's make one further transformation to this bundle, which could be this one. So instead of storing all of the server code on the back end, we can externalize that bundle, the URL and the secrets, to a location that can be referenced with a URL. It can be stored in GitHub or an S3 bucket or whatever that you like to use. But that bundle, the tiny one there with the lock, is the webtask token. It kind of looks like that, and defines the application logic along with the secrets necessary to execute the application logic, right? We care a lot about the security of it. So cryptographically speaking, it's good, right? It's safe. It can be safely stored on the client too, so you forget completely about your backend. And it is reasonable to be passing this webtask token within the HTTP protocol as a payload, as you could do with any of your payloads, right? Let me see. There we go. I don't know if this is yeah. So one place a webtask token can be securely stored is within the application itself, right? The client application itself. The backend secrets remain safe from disclosure because they are encrypted at the same time. And you start to forget a little bit of what you do in your backend. You start to rely only on what's on the client side of your application, right? This is just like the genesis of webtask at the same time of thinking the backend from a serverless point of view. So the next question would be, what is serverless? Does any questions so far, or anyone that knows a little bit of serverless approach? Have tried any of our competitors on that matter, maybe? Not really? No one? Okay, so serverless architecture refers to applications that significantly depend on third-party services, right? This is where everything starts to work as a backend, as a function, backend as a service, function as a service, right? You should start to think of creating functions, any functions, passing the parameters, and then executing whatever is inside and returning a callback function, for example, and passing that to the client. So that's the only thing that your backend should do. Only specific units of logic, okay? This is the tip of the iceberg, right, of the serverless philosophy. Yeah. So, for example, right now we have, all of us kind of think we understand the web as how it works, right? We have web applications with backend and front end, and we deploy them and all the stuff. But if you go back in time and start thinking, okay, which were the first applications that were created? How they were created? They were actually were applications in the Unix command line, right? And you were piping the stream of data from the standard input to the standard output of that application, and that's how it all worked. This is the same approach, but in the cloud, right? So you will be creating tiny bits of logic all over the cloud, and they could be communicating among each other. I don't know what's wrong with the audio, right? So right now we have APIs, we have crawlers, we have feeds, we have all that information that is being consumed and transformed and shared from different ways. And sometimes it's being deployed in such a heavy way for a company or for a startup or for one developer, right? It's like a big task for one person, one startup, right? Well, this is what servers look like a little bit back in that time. You might remember a series like this one. But then in 2006, we have all the cloud and the software as a service started to change everything. And I believe many of the things that are working nowadays behave this way. And this is the idea that most of us, me included, has of how everything is working in the cloud, right? Well, the equivalent of the pipe, the Unix pipe in the age of the web is what I'm saying, is these tiny bits of logic all around the cloud communicating within themselves. In 2007, we have the webhooks, which revolutionized the web, which is you kind of poke one thing, and the other thing hears what you have poked, right, and trigger another logic. But they also brought pain to the customer, right? It's not that magic. Okay, I have webhooks, everything happening. I don't have to care about any of it. You develop a webhook, the customer has to build on top of it, right? The webhook is a service, the customer has to host it, has to run it, has to monitor if it's broken, if it's dead, you have to bring it back live, right? And it may have to pay for it for all the transactions that are going through that endpoint. So from 2015, the serverless philosophy started to showing up and take a little bit of shape. There are different companies working on this. On top of mine, I can think of 3 big ones. One is the one I'm working for. But at the same time, this is not something that we focus on. This is kind of like the experimental side, experimental teams within the company are starting to fool around with this idea and ended up making this product alongside the main business that our company does, right? So one could say that serverless functions are an evolution for webhooks, right? So the customer still has to build that, but they are much more easier to implement. You do not host that, yeah, right? The customer still has to monitor that. The customer still has to pay for whoever brings you the serverless possibility. And this is the next frontier, I believe. Obviously, we will still be doing stuff like this one. That will still happen. At the same time, there are so many things. Everyone wants to build their app. You know, your mom, hey, you're an IT guy. Why don't you build me an app to order pizza faster, right? So many repetitive topics and things are questioned every day, and we are all working on the same thing, and we do not have to have a huge full stack application with our front end in Angular and the back end in Python, or both things in Angular, Node, or Rails, right? And if you have to learn all that, it's a pain, right? Well, this is like a different philosophy, and all these companies, you might know some of these, are a little bit playing around with webhooks and playing around with the idea of serverless for a long time. And I believe if you're building your own company or working on a company and trying to simplify things, you might be using one of these services or all of them by creating your own webhooks, by coding just tiny bits of functions that interact with this. Okay, we'll stop a little bit here, and I'm gonna show you a little bit down to earth what I'm talking about, right? Any questions so far? Please feel free to, this is like a break for me, so feel free to ask any questions or clarify anything. No matter how silly it might look or philosophical it might be, just throw it back to the stage, please. No?
What's a specific example of a webhook?
A webhook. So for example, if you have a service like GitHub, yeah. For example, you tied your application, you tied, for example, Slack to GitHub. So when you choose, that's one of the samples that I was willing to bring today, is so if you create an issue in the repository of GitHub, it will post you a message on Slack, hey, this guy created an issue at this time. Or if there's a new pull request opened or closed, depending on the action that you select, you will be posted on Slack, hey, this is happening. That's like typical example of a simple example of a webhook. It can be as complex as one can imagine, of course. Yeah.
So is it basically a callback?
Yes, it's a way of communicating. So I poke here, and as these services are communicating in a trusted way between one another, it will send something here, whatever I customize it like. So before starting playing a little bit with webtasks, this is something that the team within the company, a team that I do not belong in the company, they have created webtasks a couple of years ago, and so far it's growing quite well. And several companies, for example, Salesforce, customers are being able to extend the functionality that Salesforce has for them just by using webtask. So you're a company, you use Salesforce. You need custom functionalities for Salesforce. You use webtask, you pay a little bit, and we help you customize that, right? So Azure Webtask is a platform to easily create serverless HTTP endpoints. Each webtask is an own endpoint, all right? It executes on Node.js code in a secure and safe manner. Any Node.js developer or wannabe in the house? Yeah. Woo! I saw hands saying like that. All right. So every webtask is an HTTP endpoint. It's a simple Node.js programming model. So if you know Node.js, you know webtask. You have full access to all the Node modules through NPM, which is a Node package manager to bring functionality from other people to your stack. It allows you to insert a middleware, for example, and it differs from other serverless offerings because it is specialized for Node. It needs low configuration, you will see now, and it's highly customizable. It's just functions, right? So let's see if I can do this. This is where I start moving things on my screen, and they should show up there. There we go. So this is the main website, webtasks.io. So I invite you to fool around along it, though it doesn't have much. You just click on try now, and they will send you some fancy samples. But if you go to webtasks.io/make, this is where things start to get a little more funny, because this is where you can start playing and creating your own functions, right? Okay, that didn't move. That's good. So I've already created my. I'm gonna log out from the editor. So any of you that goes right now, if you have your laptop there, you go right now there. I'm gonna log out. I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna enter with my personal email, which is it's waiting for it. I'm already logged into the webtasks.io platform. I'm heading to the editor, so it's webtasks.io/make. And I can start playing around with the editor, right? So I've already created one sample, but let's erase this a little bit. This is a webtask, as you can see. So for the people that are not familiar with JavaScript, we are just exporting this function, and here we have a normal function, right? It receives a context object, which we're gonna talk about later, and a callback function, right? See how functions, callbacks, input, output, webhooks, they are all kind of type. So if we, yes? Oh, I didn't know that was a mic.
Yeah, so how do we know the name of this function to refer to it later? I don't see the name there.
That's only one function.
And?
Yeah. So you just call the function and export it, and that's it. That's the way it works with webhooks. You cannot export 3 functions, for example. You only export only one. Does that make sense, or is it too crazy? Sorry?
So okay, so it's called by default.
No,
how do you refer to that specific function somewhere else?
You don't need to. It runs within our. So this is the thing. So you create a function this way, within the webtasks platform. It runs on our servers, and then you use that endpoint. This is an HTTP endpoint, right?
Okay, so where's the endpoint that has this function?
We'll go for it. We'll go for it in a minute. That's a good question. Like, okay, this is a guy just putting a function in a random editor, and what do I do with it, right? Makes sense. Okay, we'll save it here. The function. I'm able to see the logs of this, but I'm gonna run it just here. Okay. And you see there's the output. I'm gonna click on the logs, and it says, well, it's connected, and that's pretty much it. Doesn't say much, right? For example, I could pass parameters to it. So if I come here and add, for example, name, and I put Sean, and I run that again, instead of saying anonymous, the context of the function, which we're going to talk about later, will fill out the data, which is part of the headers object, and it will access to the name key that I created here, and it will find the validation, right? So for example, if right now and we'll get more familiar with this in a little bit. If I also log the context data object, let's do the context name first. Save it, I run it. Put out the scroll. I'll have shown here, right? I could also do just also log the context data. Save it, run it, and I'll have the entire JSON, which is logging the context data also, right? Let me go a little bit more, and everything will start making sense. So the webtasks outputs a JSON object with the hello property, and a value that could be either anonymous or whatever I put within the data of name. And notice that it receives the two parameters. One is the context object, the other is the callback object. That's the function, the nameless function. And then the callback accepts two parameters as well. One is the error, which I'm setting to null, and the other one is the JSON object, which is the response. It could also be the logs as we were seeing, which is right here. This is a fancy way of playing with webtasks. We can use this from the command line as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. You can also call the webtask from the browser, and this is where the HTTP endpoint might make more sense. So, for example, this is my webtask. It's a nameless function. I go right here, copy the URL that it was generated, and I have in this endpoint the hello anonymous object that it was returning me within the webtask editor, right? And for example, if I pass this parameter, Daniel, so you can start using this maybe as a website. Maybe you can render HTML right from the website, right from the webtask, right? Still doesn't make sense, or not really?
That does make sense.
A little bit more. Too much sci-fi? Please go ahead. No? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so far you can do that just, sorry. I mean, so far you can do that just writing a Node app that says, hello.
Yeah, hello world.
Yeah, and you can sort of get on it and do that.
Yep.
So, where's
the magic?
What's the magical bit that you can't do just by spinning up a Node app?
Sorry, couldn't hear that.
So, I mean, you could kind of put something like that just in a Node.js app.
Yeah, and it will do exactly the same thing.
Do the same thing.
But you have to deploy that.
Right.
With a package JSON, with a server. This everything runs within the webtask sandbox and our servers, right? You do not think of deploying of the URL or any of those factors at all. You just only, and we will see that if when I start coding, when I get rid of the webtask editor and start doing everything from the command line.
Okay.
That will make more sense because right now everything happens within a fancy editor, and to me that's amazing because we didn't have the editor before. It was all command line, but if you want to start from scratch, it will surely be better to start from the editor.
Sorry, one question.
Yeah.
Are there any concerns, any cross-origin concerns if I put that endpoint, if I reference the endpoint in my HTML site from another?
If we have cross origin,
will I run into any cause errors?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that has been improved in the last year or something, but I haven't. I hear customers issues every single day of all kinds. Like it's not only me. We are like 20 people hearing about that, and we haven't had issues with cross-origin requests for webtask so far.
And then on the other side of it, then can we set the access control headers? Because if we're gonna
yes, you can. Yeah, you can set you can set all those headers.
Okay.
Yeah, you can set that, and we'll get to that in a little bit too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, one more question. So I understand that instead of deploying our own Node.js server somewhere, when we're using webtask, we use essentially your platform for hosting our code. Is this right?
So you'll be hosting your code. Your code will be running through our servers, but you will be the one hosting your code. It can be run through, I know, your command line.
So where is the code? This code, where is it stored?
So it runs through. So we have like servers, let's call it that way, which are like different sandboxes where we are able to process all the different web tasks that people create, but we do not store the code anywhere. Right? So it's only based on your account. We do not have access, like no one have access to this account. If you run it from the command line, which I'm gonna do in a little bit, no one has access to your local files. So you just create a code, deploy it, and it runs right there, the HTTP endpoint. But all happens through the sandboxes that we have.
Okay, I'll probably need to see more of this before I understand the full picture.
Okay, no worries. I know you're asking, so where's the magic happening, right? Because I'm just writing code, editor, or command line, and then it's working on the cloud. What's in the middle, right? Where's the deal? That's kind of the fun part of serverless. If you choose any other service that offer this possibility, not webtask, but any serverless option, you will find the same difficulty of saying, okay, but where is the code? Where is it hosted? Where can I control the HTTP headers, right? Okay, let's do one thing about the webhook. So, for example, I can create a new repo. I think I actually created one already, but this one. And I will go to settings. I'll add to webhooks. I'll edit this webhook, but I could just, one second. I could just, let's delete it actually. So it's more honest. Yes, delete webhook. I'll add a webhook. I'll get my URL here without the URL params. I paste this here. I said to application station, please send me everything. It will be active. I add the webhook. This is all on GitHub. It is already running. So when I check here, the logs, and I click run. One second. Was this for? 1 second. Should be connected. Let's try this one out. Not this one, not this one, this one. I'll get the webhook again. I'll set it here. Update. And we see in the logs that it was connected. If I run it, also log something. We'll see if it logs. The webhook. Fine. Okay. I know, but it's not. I think I have not linked my accounts properly, but it should run whenever I update the webhook. Right now, I'm updating it because I'm starting it, so it should trigger the web task, but it should run. It's not running right now. Sorry. Let's move to the If you have more web tasks, you can list them here. Obviously, you can erase them. For example, let's erase the hello one. You can edit it. It's all part of the editor. Let's go to the command line a little bit. So this is, I have to stop sharing. And only share my command line. Cool. So for example, if the way to do this is you do npm install. Actually, we'll get to it. webtask.io. You have all here the instructions. So you just install the webtask command line tool through npm, and then you initialize it. Oh yeah, so I forgot. Stop share. So if you go to webtask.io/command line interface, you can install it through npm, and then start initializing it, which this is what I'm going to do, and start creating your web task right from the command line. That's all what I wanted to share in the browser. Let's go back to the terminal. So I've already installed it. I can initialize it with my account. You will say that I already registered one account, which is the same one, but it doesn't matter. And it will send me, a verification code to my email to see that this guy is doing this thing, and the verification code is 251392 to the email that I just registered. Hello, you can start using webtask. So here it will list all the webtasks that you're using. And you will see the webtask that we were seeing in, should I make this bigger? Yeah. Good. And we'll see the different web tasks that I have if you want deployed in the web task cloud, right? So we have web task 1, 3, 4, the URL, and if you want to edit it, you can edit it this way. Something else that you could do is, for example, if you just want to check the logs of one web task, you could go to wt logs, and it will start logging all the information that you are seeing in the web task editor. You will see the logs right from the command line. So you don't need at all the web task editor. It's just a fancy thing that we have pulled out lately for people who are dealing with huge web tasks. We created that because it has other functionalities which I'm going to mention later. So we have all the you can see the logs from there too. You can serve it locally. So for example, if you create, let's create this one. For example, if I create this function, sorry, not this one. Let's say that I just create this web task, which is the one that we have as a demo. If I do hello JS file, and I just create the webtask. Again, see, this is a nameless function. And then I do webtask create and use please the hello, the JavaScript file that I just created in my path. It's just deployed a webtask under that URL, right? So it's exactly the same as using the editor. I'm gonna stop sharing this and get back to the presentation. So there are like 3 programming models for us. One is the simple function that it's a callback function that returns a value, an object. In this case, it's just a string, hello world. The other programming model is context on the callback function, which is the one that we have already been using. And the other one is full HTTP control, right? Where you have in the Node.js standard way the request, the response, and the context object, right? Sorry, thought you were going to ask something. So the callback object on webtasks allows you to return a body, right? It can be a string, a JSON payload, as we have seen. This is useful for any scenarios. If you want to, well, whatever you can respond, can be just a string, can be, you can render an entire HTML template too. So for example, let's go back to the webtask editor and check, yeah, webtask 3. Here you can start writing the heads of your HTML, right? And set up the content type and all those headers. And you can render HTML right from here. So this opens up like a huge number of possibilities. You can write micro APIs from here. You can render any kind of HTML from here. You can put a data set right there and render it with a graphic or a PDF or any kind of JavaScript front-end library that eats that whatever data that you set up there or that consumes any API that you chose there. Let's jump into even more possibilities by, if you click here on the branch, and this is the part where the editor is better than the command line. All this. Because if you have to add modules from the command line, it's a little bit of a pain and you're starting to edit directly from the file. You can start, for example, if I want, let me find another example. If you want to include requests, for example, and do a request to this API, you need to head here to npm modules. Please use request. But I can, for example, remove it. Yes. npm modules, add module. You can start to search, and it will start listing you the different requests objects that you might need. Right. I just add the module. You can specify the version here as well. It's not just the latest that we find. And if we run this web task, you're starting to manipulate, I know, JSONs, any kind of informations just by doing this. See, it's doing a get from to an endpoint, which is this URL, and that's pretty much it. And you're just responding the body right here. So there you go. You have rendering, HTML rendering. You can add any kind of npm packages to webtask, and you can, yep.
So what happens when the error gets thrown?
Sorry?
When the error gets thrown, what catches it? Or what happens?
You will see the errors. If it fails, if it explodes, right, which happens, of course, you will see it logged in the logs here. And you can see the logs. You can see logs in the webtask editor, but at the same time, you can see logs if you're running it from the command line, right? So in the command line, you can have a separate tab where you see all the logs of the webtasks that I'm currently using. But that's all in the cloud, and you don't want to mess things up in the cloud. So you can serve that locally too. That's one of the commands. Let's go back to the terminal. That's one of the commands that you can use from here. So for example, I could use, remember that I created this JS file, just a one-liner. So I could serve locally hello JS, and it's running in localhost 8080, and I can start trying things out just on a local environment. And at the same time, you could have another tab where you see the logs of what's happening here, right? One more thing that you could do within the command line, and this might be useful if you want to, let's say you want to include, you already know what you want to build in this website, in this web task, but you need lots of NPM packages, right? What's the normal thing that you could do? Even if you have the entire idea in your mind, you could do npm init, right? And it will say, okay, give me the package name, which is a version, the description, entry point would be, in this case, the main would be hello, test command, which is a repo that this will be deployed. We are just creating the package JSON, right, with npm init, for the ones that are not familiar with, and with Node.js. And this is the output. I was just clicking enter for all the default options, but this is the output of the package JSON, right? And you can start, is this okay? Yes. So now I have the package JSON right here, right? This is the one that we were seeing. But we could install dependencies. For example, if we do, I don't know, let's say npm, let's do request, I don't know. Let's install the request promise.
Why are we creating? So why are we initializing sort of the npm here? Or, oh, sorry.
This is
why
just,
are we? Yeah.
Yeah. Feel free
Just
to.
why are we initializing the npm here? I think.
Yeah. Let's say that you want to start a repo from scratch. Or just okay. Let's start. Okay. npm init. This is the repository that I'm gonna use. This is where my test files will be. This is where my main object will be. This is a repo, this is a license, this is the author. And we are adding all the NPM packages through the command line, which could be much more nicer than just being in the editor, click, add, right? I know, personally, I would prefer doing it this way. But in the latest command that I just ran, which is this one, I'm saving to the package JSON, to this command, this library. So again, if I show the output, I see that I have installed the dependencies for my web task, which is request and request promise, to the latest version, right? Which is what everyone could do if installing any Node.js backend, right? So that's the way you include npm packages to your web task and make it more powerful. And you didn't even start writing the web task yet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What restrictions do you have on what people can run? Like, I mean, if somebody were to write a web task function to mine Bitcoins and upload it to your server, would it just kind of churn away and just spit out Bitcoins?
Well, in that case, that the moral part of it, we don't measure that. It's hard to measure, right?
Yeah.
But you mean about rate limiting, for example?
Yeah, I mean, like what?
Someone creates a web task and does that for that purpose.
Yeah, I mean, so normally, if you're running your own backend, you know, you're paying for the servers, and you know, the more services you use, obviously, the more servers you got. Like, what's the kind of model here? Can you just upload any functions you like? Do you kind of get charged for usage?
That's a really good question, and I think that's a little bit of a immature area of the web task product, which makes it really good for users. So let's say you have let's not say that we are mining Bitcoin, but yeah, any kind of thing. You're using a web task that tons of people are hitting to that endpoint, right? The rate limiting on a single web task per user, so you can have 10 web tasks different, and they are all being hit the same way, or you may have 10 web tasks and only one is being bombed by the entire world. We do not do that much of we do not rate limit that much. So it can be bombed pretty heavily. So far, we are not putting restrictions to it. Obviously, if we notice a huge load, we will inspect, hey, what's going on with this endpoint? It's being bombed, right? And we might, we will let you know. But we do not have policies about that. So you're messing up with our servers, right? It doesn't mind whatever people are doing. It's just we won't support that. But we are not rate limiting that currently, and it's a green area for us. That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about scaling and maintaining state?
Okay. What about scaling and
maintaining state? Can I use global variables in my function, for instance?
You can. So all the variables that you create are within the scope of the function, obviously, right? But you can require other services. You can require, for example, I was going to create, that's the next step of where I was going, right? You can use secrets or storage within the web task. So we have, I forgot what I'm sharing. Stop share, Chrome. So if you, and this is a powerful side, or a powerful side of the editor and not the command line. See, there's like, we try to offer both, the best of both worlds, but if you go here to Wrench, you'll see that we have, well, templates. If you want to create your own templates, I always use the same template. You just click there and you have the entire logic pasted. But for what you're saying is, you can request secrets from our services. For example, if I want to integrate this with Slack, I can put my Slack identifier. I can save it as a secret in my web task, right? And it's saved within the web task itself. You're not saving that secret anywhere else. And it will call resources from Slack.
Yeah, but what I mean is whether this application stay alive. For instance, above the export, above the module exports, can I there say let x, and in the function can I then say x equals x plus 1, for instance? Does it make sense, or is that application exited every time the function is ready?
The application either fails as an error, in this case it's null, so there is no error message or nothing, it will just crash and you will see it in the logs, or it will end successfully and give you the body. But all the variables that you create are obviously there. It's just like any other function.
But will they stay there also the next time this function is called?
Oh yeah, I understand. No. Okay. It creates every single time.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I understand that. So how do you create, for example, an accumulator? Yeah. Between the calls of that? You can save that. It's not part of the secrets, what I was saying. I got misled. You can put that as in storage, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, I'm gonna, instead of just showing it, I'm gonna just show the code so we can all see it. For example, about saving an accumulated value, and this is like was gonna be the last example of my talk today, but let's bring it up right now because it makes sense. Let's close this. So well, this was like the most complex example I was going to show, but you can see that within the context object, and remember that we have 3 programming models. One is having the programming model is based on the parameters that the function receives. So it could be context only callback. The second one would be context and callback, which is the one that we're seeing, and the other one is context, request, and response. So you have the entire flow of any endpoint, right? But this is the second programming model, and this has context and callback. And within the context, you can start saving stuff in the storage. So you could access it with context.storage and get any kind of information. In this case, you will get data. If there was a reading error, you will get an error, and you can output that error through the logs and manage it properly. But you can get and change and set the storage. You can see you are setting the variable, right? So the way between calls of the same function, you can save variables. That could be the way to do it, and that's called the storage. And the limits on that, I believe you can retrieve any single JSON object that is less than 500 kilobytes. So it's not unlimited, but it's something, right?
Okay, and then what about scaling? Say this function takes a few seconds, and then after one second, for another user also need to run that function. Do I then have to wait that this function ends, or will it run concurrently another time?
Yeah. So let's say 3 people hit this endpoint at the same time, right? That will run at the same time in different clusters on our end.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many at the same time would we support. I wouldn't know the answer to that question, but that will happen at the same time. Yes, it's not that they have to wait for the other user finish processing the entire web task. So in that sense, you don't have to worry about anything, right?
But that's the real power then of those web tasks.
It has different hidden powers, but at the same time, it's. I know. I think I like it personally. It's not that I'm trying to sell that to you. I like the entire thing. Personally, for personal use of a serverless approach, I've tried webtask. I tried Now from Seat company, and I've tried AWS as well. I know. I've been liking webtask so far because of the different concepts that it has. It's pretty clear: storage, secrets, the editor, the command line, and that's it. Without AWS, you have tons of functionalities which I didn't have time to explore, so I wouldn't be able to judge. And now it's I know, I liked it. I've been using it, so that's another nice competitor to webtask, I would say. I don't know all the infrastructure benefits between webtask or Now, for example. Yeah.
Can you write code locally and push it to the website?
Can you run code locally and
write it locally?
Yeah, it's
Rather than using
in the editor. Yeah, absolutely. So I've shown that. Let me go back to terminal, but that's you can run it locally and you can just write code locally. So for example, here I created here I created just this JavaScript file, hello.js, and that's it. And I can run it locally, and I can debug it locally. And then you can just push it to the cloud and start testing on the cloud, but obviously that's not a good practice. You can still do it. Yeah. Latest. Yeah, latest, and all the npm packages, you can bring the latest, and if you want retrospective, older packages of requests, for example, you can specify that either through the command line or through the editor. So let's say I want request version 123. That's all right. You can require it. If that doesn't work, it's because that package version is not working, because it's entirely connected to the Node package manager. Yeah.
So the URL for your user.
The
URL for your user basically stays fixed. It doesn't change over time.
Yes, that's a good question. Oh, I forgot what I'm sharing. Let's go back to the browser. Yes. So when you create the web task, this guy over here, it's the URL of your web task, and you cannot change that. For example, now that I remember, Now, which is a competitor of webtask, they offer to change it a little bit, or for 2 or 3 of your web task, right? And if you pay more, they give you that option. We do not offer that yet. That's a nice question. So, for example, I create I don't know, an entire service, an entire beta app with a web task, which is what I would use it, and I think most people should use web tasks to test an idea and see if it works. Yeah, it will look awful in Chrome, right? Because I have to pay. Say, check out my app, right? But it's what we have right now, and you can render the entire HTML page from there and everything. But that's not fancy. Maybe you can redirect. I don't know. We haven't thought much about that.
And with the GitHub integration, are you able to push directly your code from your the command line, or the way to push your code would be to deploy your code would be through the client.
Would you want? What is exactly what you want? So
no. So basically, if I'm working locally and I want to push my code, the only way to do that will be using the CLI.
Yeah.
Or
the only way. Yes, that's a good question. Let's get back to the command line. Bro. So there.
I thought there might be an integration with GitHub in some way in which you could
which could be deployed to your repository.
Yeah,
we do not have that. Though it might be possible if you mess around and create an entire web task that does that and that calls that. You could do that, but that's not something that we have thought about. So
maybe we could have the same that Heroku has, basically a Git repository inside the web task itself, and then
it makes sense. It would need more integration with not only GitHub but any other service to be deployed to that service. Just the code, only like the text. That's something that we.
Did you create a web task to deploy web tasks?
So I think I've heard that question at some point. I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I think that wouldn't be possible because there is no way that you can create your web task creator, right? So your web task creator could be the WT application from the command line or the web task editor. You cannot call the web task editor.
I think
maybe you can. I don't know.
If I can add to that, this is kind of a common scenario for serverless framework that they have something called cold start, which when he called the first for the first time that function, after a while it's been stale. It goes into like a stale state, which then takes time to warm up and start running. So the first call always takes a bit longer, but once you get it up and running, it runs instantaneously pretty much. So what people do, they create another task to keep
that running
alive.
I haven't heard of that specifically for web tests. I haven't heard of that. I've tried that myself and doing load testing and trying the rate limiting of now, for example. Because I know the guys and I know they fix things quickly, and that's something I've been evolving quite a lot. But I have not tried that in webtask, but that is something interesting. I have not measured the response time since you try to execute your web task for the first time, and what if I execute it another time and another time and another time, and I keep bumping that in a civilized way where Auth0 doesn't pay attention. Hey, this guy has something to do with our rate limits, right? That's a good question. That's
more common for around AWS Lambdas and that sort of setup.
Yeah, they might be able to. I'm not an expert on that topic, and I haven't played much with them. But you can set up with the AWS Lambda to make sure that the response time is faster.
Yeah, to keep it
alive.
Yeah, alive. Yeah, kind of to avoid the cold start.
It's not that I want to say they are awesome or anything. I just don't know. I haven't played with it.
The one thing that's it comes to my mind is all of the logging that you see and that you can get output in the console. Can you actually export those logs somewhere?
Yeah.
While
you can just export it to a file, and that's it. It's like any command line tool.
I see.
Yeah.
Just in case if something goes wrong, you might want to just go back to the logs and see what
you might have lost the entire logs if something went wrong. Yeah. The terminal exploded and you lost the logs. Yeah. Those are actually like really simple questions, like the one about the keeping it alive and see it act faster. The file, this file is saving the file, right? That are things that we hear daily, right? And they are like feature requests from customers, and they ended up doing it themselves. And we just, when we see a really nice approach, we accept the pull request and we start working with that customer, and we just make it to the product. It's as I said, Auth0, this is not what Auth0 normally does. We have like a huge other product. This was like an experimental part, and I think it helped. Like, it makes money. It's fun. It helped us. We built our own webhooks and integrations for our own internal daily tools. We use webtasks for many of our services.
You just mentioned pull requests, so is it open source?
Until a certain point. Yeah. So I'm not an expert about the infrastructure where webtask runs and the sandboxes and all that. That's surely not open source. But yes, I think if we go to Auth0, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. Do we have a webtask username? Can't remember. So this is here we have tons. This is where I talk about Auth0. Here we have tons of SDKs and integrations for doing identity management and whichever front end or back end that you're using. And most of them are back end, and we welcome pull requests. They are not all extremely updated, but we try our best to keep all of the SDKs as much as updated. We do not have the webtask organization. I don't know who these guys are. So if you put webtask in github.com/Auth0, you see all the different webtasks that we offer. And you will see different templates as well that people have asked to. That's it. I think that's record. Do you have any other further questions? Yeah.
So how does it behave? How do you scale it? I mean, once, say, you started something on webtask, and a couple of years later, there is tons of customers coming to your website. You need to scale out. You need to basically grow it. And so, how
does this scale? How does this entire serverless approach scale? Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that's one of the weak points, if you want to say it, about going serverless. And again, I don't know about AWS again, because I haven't played with it. But the same happens with Now and webtask. It scales depending on the functionalities of your business. It scales until a certain point. Then you might have to evaluate: do I create more webtasks? Do I isolate them in a different sandbox or runtime environment? Do I do something else? Maybe you are actually calling a Mongo database from your own webtask, and that helps you to whichever issue that you're having escalating for that specific function that the webtask does. It depends. It's hard to escalate it, and it might, if you say, okay, yeah, let's build an entire company with webtask, right? Until some point say, well, we might have some roadblocks. And my approach could be to analyze which of those roadblocks are and which could be the different solutions. Might be changing something in your database, might be changing the database that you're using. It depends. It's to me, it's like a wider infrastructure question, that one. But obviously, I would ask myself the same question: is how much does this scale? And it depends.
Well, for example, if we talk about AWS, you would need to scale out, introduce new instances to process the logic if the load increases on your system. But
how would you implement?
I understand how that works with webtasks. Do you have several instances of webtasks that will need to increase?
We have
more.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it has something to do with a question I was previously asked. Like, we support a web task from a user being called several times at the same time. I'm not sure how much of that, how much do we support that, right? I couldn't know about the infrastructure of that. So in that case, if your endpoint is, we do not do load balancing, which is within webtask, right? So it depends on how you embed the webtask in your own backend. Again, it depends on your backend. This is just a point of functionality. Consider it that people are talking about serverless, people are talking about function as a service. This is just a function that provides one shove. And it should do one shove really well, same as the Unix philosophy, right? Consider it just like that, and then use it however it works for you and your infrastructure. But then yes, when you start scaling, all these questions start to rise, and then say, okay, maybe all this webtask is nonsense, let's change and build a proper backend. Maybe you do that, but you have been beta testing without times of developing time, money. Yeah.
What about pricing?
What about pricing? So far, everything that you have seen is free, so that's good. And I think and I asked this to one of the creators of webtasks the other day, is what if they ask me about pricing? What are the rate limits of a webtask? We do not have any restrictions for webtask usage. The way we make money by creating webtasks is offering companies, for example, let's say, it was kind of the example I was mentioning before. Let's say a company uses Salesforce intensively, which many companies do. And they need a specific thing to process a specific data sheet or a specific data set. They might embed within the functionality of Salesforce a webtask that does that tiny bit of logic. We help them doing that, and that's where they pay. The other way of making money with this from our end is selling that to Salesforce directly, to a company like Salesforce. That's it. From the webtask point of view, it's all free. Yeah. Enjoy it as long as it lasts, right? Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. If you have more questions, well, that's my email. That's my Twitter. I reply to emails quite a lot, so bomb me anywhere. I'm into all this. Like I normally do not work with webtask on a daily basis just to solve a customer issue, but I'm not the expert of webtask in my company. There's a whole team working only with webtask the entire day. But I think we all people in our team, developer success engineering, can answer these kind of questions that people and developers may have. And when we hear feature requests or bugs or weaknesses, we talk directly with engineering, and they might fix it, or we may fix them together with them. If it's a tiny thing, we will fix it ourselves. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
I forgot to say earlier, Daniel's actually come specifically from Spain to speak to us, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I came from Madrid. Today I arrived to London. I left Madrid at 6 and something and arrived to London nearly 9 a.m. And I should be back in Madrid tomorrow, 2 p.m. Sorry, I'm missing the weekend. Bad decision.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
It's just this is our thanks. Brilliant that you came. Thank you so much, and thanks again to Just Eat for the pizza and the beer. This was our last HalfStack Meetup for the year, because there's the HalfStack conference coming up in November, and December's so quiet, we're not having a meetup then, so the next will be in January. But if you've got any talks that you'd like to give, or just things that you're interested in, please do get in touch. Oh, I can't. But please do get in touch with us via the meetup page or any way like that. and just propose things or suggest things. That'd be great. Thank you so much again. It's brilliant.
Thank you.